the inability to acknowledge the existence of women of a major progressive organization.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that,
the
Robby?
ACLU tweet I'm referring to.
So who in your life hasn't acknowledged the existence of women? I'm sitting here a woman, and I've heard this is expanding a lot, so we might as well just be specific about what we mean.
I'm talking about the ACLU. It's indicative
Are
of
you talking about the broader trend in some very niche liberal circles to
birthing persons?
Yeah, because there exists some trans people who identify as men who can be pregnant because they can.
Absolutely, there are edge cases to everything.
Right. So I'm curious, Robby. I've never personally met a pregnant trans man. Right. I have met some trans men. I've met no pregnant trans men. If you were to meet one, would you refer to them as a pregnant woman?
I would use whatever language makes them most comfortable.
All right. So maybe even birthing person.
Well, if that individual person wants that language, sure. But that just because there are rare every category has rare exceptions to it. Yeah. That doesn't mean the category doesn't exist or is false.
Yeah, look,
I'm not accusing you of saying that at all, but there is a dancing around that now going on in a lot of language, just creeping its way from educational centers into how these things are taught. And you can be for that. You can say that's fine. I'm just saying that is fairly radical. And
is it radical just to defer to
radical new language?
Well, it is new, and I'm not going to sit here and say it's not uncomfortable for probably most people, just like any new thing is uncomfortable. Like I said, I've only had the pleasure of meeting a couple of trans men in my entire life. It is what it is. But I also am really skeptical of why it is that this is such a huge part of the conversation when neither of us have ever been in an intimate personal situation where it's ever come up. I appreciate that there are some fringe parts of the left who perhaps overextend themselves to seem like they're doing the right thing. But if I have a choice between a party who is hypersensitive to just wanting to be nice to people and not making them feel uncomfortable, and another party who thinks it's a punchline to talk about folks in that way, who aren't really hurting anybody, all the while trying to use that to distract from the fact that they are trying to crush a democratically supported $15 minimum wage effort in a state that voted for Donald Trump. Trump voters want this, and their legislature, their representatives are using people's confusion about new social issues to derail a substantive conversation about their economic rights. Then I will take the birthing person all day and night. And I just really think it's worth teeing up the contrast there and being really specific about what the stakes are.
But if using the terminology birthing, sure.
I've never said the word birthing person.
I'm just saying from a political standpoint, there's no question that the Democrats offer a more on economic, on a lot of the issues you're passionate about, offer a more friendly to the working class package of policies than Republicans do. So the fact that despite that, the Republicans are gaining ground and Democrats are losing ground horribly with this political bloc, because they are so annoyed by things like the birthing person stuff, should show Democrats that they should really stop doing that.
Well, here's what I will say. I've never heard personally, I don't like these people I'm about to mention, by the way. I don't care for them. But I've never heard Chuck Schumer say birthing person. I've never heard Joe Biden say birthing person. I've never heard Elizabeth Warren say birthing person. I've never heard Joe Biden say, Bernie Sanders say birthing person. I don't think I've ever heard an elected Democratic official say it. I have seen some,
why do they make fun of people
activist groups say it somewhere, I guess. I don't even know where the origin of it is. What I do know is that I turned on some Tucker Carlson the other night and I heard one of his guests say that women shouldn't be in the military. They're trying to put tampon in boys' bathroom. We got to get women out of the military because they're bleeding all over the place. Now, should Democrats be highlighting the kind of rhetoric that is regularly coming out of the right like that? The fact that Marjorie Taylor Greene and a bunch of these other folks have these red laser eyes that are supposed to be
Democrats do highlight that all the time.
Should we be no, they don't highlight it over the time. Every time I turn on the TV, it's a conservative talking about birthing person. I don't hear all of them talking about those specific instances, the specific language that is coming out of some sections of the far right.
In the media, Marjorie Taylor Greene is talked about every day.
Right. They talk about, they say things like this is comms advice for Democrats I'm giving you right now. It's not enough to say Marjorie Taylor Greene is crazy. It's not enough to say Donald Trump is racist, because there is plausible deniability behind those kind of vague statements. You have to be able to specifically articulate what it is that something's doing wrong. And saying things like, well, Donald Trump thinks Mexico's not sending their greatest people. To people who like Donald Trump, that's not a racist statement. That's like a factual statement that says, I think that Mexicans are great. They're just not sending the great ones. That's how you have to be in that mindset and know that when you say things like, well, he's just racist for that, that you lose credibility in that. Everyone should be more specific is my argument, because if you are more specific about your critique, it's more difficult to breeze away and be characterized as some like crazy CRT zealot who just wants everyone to hate white children or whatever the rhetoric is.
Well, I think people like the people you mentioned, Biden himself, could do themselves a world of good by actually maybe mocking or making fun. Barack Obama used to do this. He actually, in several instances, right, criticize the kind of, fainting couch woke college students who don't want to hear dissenting opinions. He said that in commencement addresses.
And I gotta
he was
say,
the most popular president of.
I think it's kind of a bummer.
memory.
I think that's kind of an Obama in my view. Look,
I think that was tactically smart and something Biden and Kamala Harris wants to up her poll numbers. That's what she should do.
I'll stop on this. There was an instance of a community out west. I think it was in maybe Utah or Nevada, where there was a community there was an anti-women trans girls in sports law that was put forward. There was only one trans girl in sports in the entire state or entire community. I forget which it was. And when that law came down the pike, all the community members came together and said, actually, this is ridiculous. This is obviously just trying to attack this one child, and we're not for it, even if we don't understand trans issues, even if we're not about that. I want to live in a world where people realize that there are individuals at stake when we're having these conversations and not just abstract principles. And I don't believe, as a coalition builder who wants to have a broad populist movement that includes everybody against the 1%, against the oligarchy, that we should be throwing people under the bus to win little political battles. When Biden says ultra MAGA, and Republicans put it on a shirt, it neutralizes that. And I wish that more liberals had confidence in their morals and their ethics and protecting the communities they say they care for. And when someone says, oh, birthing person is ridiculous, fine, call them something else, ask them what they want to be called. We can workshop that phrase, but it shouldn't become a punchline at the end of the day. Well, that's just my
Yeah, but there are some women who feel they are thrown under the bus by accommodations in sports, like what that category you just mentioned, for trans people. It's not always, there's not everyone in unanimous agreement that this is fine.
Sure.
There are people on the team sometimes who are frustrated with. Difficult issue, no question, but it's not just rhetoric.